on a network of computers, 100,000 or maybe millions of computers. And whenever a transaction happens on that Excel sheet, it's timestamped and updated real time. And anybody as part of that network, if they type the cheapest protocol, they will be penalized and kicked out of the protocol. So that's why we say it's uncorruptible. And that's the power of the blockchain, which basically will be the future of exchanging value. Okay, and now we have Bitcoin. So what validated the blockchain? The first digital asset that was actually created and minted across the blockchain was actually Bitcoin. This was a validation mechanism. It was transported across the blockchain peer-to-peer, and people found it very rewarding because they're able to transmit it literally within 30 minutes. It's basically value going back and forth across the globe, and the demand was very high that it literally grew from nothing. What's that right now, Jay?
Right now it's around $11,000. You can see the volatility in the market, and basically what we see on the pattern. I remember the time that we were building back in 2017, and Fidelity announced that they're going to be, providing blockchain or Bitcoin to their employees and stuff like that. And that's when the institutions started to get in, and that's when it really started to blow up.
All right, cool. So we're going to show you some live numbers right now. This is exactly where Bitcoin is sitting. Something that started off with pennies per Bitcoin is right now sitting at $11,000 US per Bitcoin, trading $20 billion per day. And actually, that's not even 24 hours yet. And then more tokens started emerging. And then you have Ethereum, which is the second most biggest digital asset, trading at $8 billion per day. That's the volume that's trading right now outside of the traditional ecosystem, with no regulation, no oversight. That's what's happening with this trading volume right now.
Just by show of hands, how many of you guys have actually heard of Ethereum? Okay, great, most people. So the power of Ethereum, which was, is that it was actually not just a coin or a digital asset, but it's actually a platform, the underlying platform for creating additional smart contracts and tokens and digital assets, etc., which we'll dive into a little bit more after.
Okay, great. So now we know that there is demand. The blockchain is amazing. It works. How do we get it and trade reliably? So what I want to know, Jay, you're the CTO of BlockStation. Together we embarked on building this platform, and I want to understand what sets this digital asset trading platform apart from all the other marketplaces that we have right now that trade Bitcoin. That we heard there's manipulation, for example, in some of these crypto exchanges. How are we actually differentiating ourselves with the JSE?
I'm going to say it in a simple way. With Mrs. Street Forest as the managing director, there is no manipulation yet passed here. But basically, the JSE has implemented rules, processes, procedures, and different things in place in order to mitigate the risk of manipulation. You have regulatory market oversight. You've got the FSC getting involved in order to make sure that they also have oversight. You have the whole ecosystem with the brokers, audit trails, making sure that people who enter the market go through AML and KYC. So there's a number of things that go into place in order to make sure that it's a fair marketplace and that there's not continuous there's not manipulation as you see with some of the unregulated crypto exchanges.
All right, great. So let me see a show of hands. How many people here heard of crypto exchanges being hacked? All right, not very cool, right? I mean, if you have your assets there and it's being hacked, who's regulating it? Why is it being hacked? So what sets us apart there? How do we prevent that completely? As Mr. Street Forest said, it's completely non-existent. So what do we do to actually prevent that?
It's simple.
That's my book.
It's simple. Which hacker can hack this book? There's no hacker that can hack this book because it's not online. It's that simple. You can't hack what's not online.
What if I steal it from you?
Well, that's theft.
So how do we prevent theft?
So we have a way to mitigate the risk of theft, okay? And so what we do is we have 5 keys, okay? In order to move the assets from the vault or the wallet, you have 5 keys and you need at least 3 to sign, okay? And the best way to demonstrate that is a game. So we're gonna play a game, and somebody's gonna win the $1,000 that I found in my pocket recently. Or has the opportunity to win. All right, so let's just get set up. We're gonna need some volunteers as well. We're gonna need some, I think we'll need 1, 2, 3 volunteers, okay? Somebody's gotta be fast, somebody's gotta be strong, and somebody's gotta be smart. All right, see one coming from the back. All right, join us, great, thank you. You got 1, 2, all right, 3. All right,
that
great.
guy.
Yeah, this is Bolt. Okay, so can I just get your name? Alright, first of all, give them a round of applause for joining us.
First, we're going to demonstrate the traditional vault versus the blockchain.
Yeah, that's right. Okay, so, alright, so we're gonna have a runner. Who's the fast one here? Alright? Huh? Who's gonna be the runner? Okay, so here's the thing. Whoever's the fast one actually gets to try to steal money, and if you successfully steal it, it's yours with no repercussions. So who's gonna take that place? Good? Alright, we're gonna break it down, but we need to get the players first. So you're the runner? Alright, great. And you'll be the key holder? Actually we're gonna bring you 2 key holders shortly. Marco's gonna be the traditional key holder, okay? So what do we got here?
100 US.
The game goes up as time goes by. So we're just starting off with small change, okay? And then we're gonna increase it as we go.
And just to be clear, what we're demonstrating right here is how traditional vaults work right now versus how the blockchain vaults are going to work. So this is a demonstration of the traditional vault.
That's right.
It's a traditional key.
So we have a traditional vault. We've got Marco with his key, and he's got his alarm. Okay? So when somebody goes to steal the key, Marco's going to go to sound the alarm, and you have to get the money before the alarm is sounded.
Where can I put this alarm? Let's just put it here.
Sure. Okay. All right, so all you gotta do, go get the key from Marco. With the key, you're able to go into the vault and take the money. That's it. Before he sounds the alarm. He sounds the alarm. After you take the key, then that's when he's gonna.
It's just so we don't trip over each other. Let's go, come grab it.
Go ahead. You gotta move fast though. Don't go slow. Get the money. Get the money. All right.
Oh man, I was too fast for me.
All right. You're gonna. All right. So you got the money before you got the key. Before you sound the alarm. So that's your money. Keep that. The stakes go up. You didn't run very fast though. Okay. And this is not what we know about Jamaicans. All right. So this time I got 5,000. Okay? So, yeah, so hopefully you're gonna run fast. Alright, but this time we're going to use the digital asset example. Okay? So we got 3 keys as we mentioned. Okay? Okay, you come over here with me. See? Okay? You guard the key, don't beat him up or anything, but guard the key. He's gonna get the key. So what you gotta do is you gotta go and get the 3 keys. Move the mic thing, just go around it a little bit. Okay, we'll put this up here so people can see it. Okay?
There's the alarm right there.
Okay? Alright, so doesn't matter the order of how you get the key? No, it doesn't matter, but once you take 1 key, these guys are gonna go to sound the alarm. So you gotta be swift, tricky, just not violent. Alright. Hey man, move pretty quick though. Give them a round of applause, guys.
All right, great. And what you just saw right there is actually the power of the blockchain, having a digital vault where you can migrate assets literally within hours perhaps to another vault in case something's compromised with the keys.
For minutes. And one of the things that we just did by distributing the people across different locations, literally the keys are held with different people at different organizations and sometimes in different countries. Okay? So it's very difficult for somebody to even run around and try to get enough keys, making it very secure. Okay, so then we have the transparency aspect.
All right, great. So in terms of tracking digital assets, Jay, we understand that in the marketplaces right now, as crypto exchanges, they're having some issues with AML policies, where there's no regulatory oversight. So what are we doing to set ourselves apart with the JSE in regards to AML rules, KYC rules, etc.?
Great. So I mean, one of the things that comes up a lot of the times when we talk about digital assets is the anonymous factor. Okay, and so I want to just demonstrate that in terms of transparency, you have what I call 3 levels. You got opaque, okay, and what I call an opaque transaction is somebody walks into the bank, they've got a bunch of cash, and the teller says, hey, where did you get the cash from? And there's no real way for the teller or the banker to understand where this cash came from other than what has been said by the client. Okay, so this is what we call opaque. Second is translucent. So translucent is what I consider in the current banking system where we can see a wire came in, let's say for example from China, but beyond that we don't know exactly where it came from without some really heavy digging. So we can't see clearly exactly where it came from. And then we have transparent, which is the blockchain, where we can track the transaction all the way back to when it was mined, from one pocket to another. Just like we did at the beginning, where you guys were all being miners, and you guys could actually track the transaction from its destination, from its current destination, all the way back to its source. Okay, and so we have a tool called ChainWatch that allows the brokers and the stock exchange and the regulators to utilize this tool in order to do the tracking. Okay, so for example, let's say we had a transaction that went from this bank in the United Kingdom to Jamaica, and we see that right now we have it, the circle is green, so everything looks good with the transaction, we don't have an issue. In the blockchain, we can dig a little bit deeper though. So when we go 2 degrees of separation away, we can see that it actually came and sourced from North Korea. And so what ChainWatch is able to do, when deposits come into the broker, the ChainWatch tool will automatically check to see if it's associated or affiliated with a flagged address. And if it's checked, then the brokers can take the necessary action to mitigate the risk, automating their AML processes and making sure we have a very strong regulated environment. So we've
all right, cool. So I mean, I believe Ms. Straightforward has spoken up about regulations, so we can kind of give a quick scan about this. But you know, what we are looking at, what is setting Blockstation and JSE apart right now in terms of a compliant platform that ensures investor protection, market integrity, and efficiency.
Yeah. So as mentioned before, we have the regulatory market oversight division. We have the FSC, who's now starting to who provided the portal and who will be also have oversight of the market. We have different things which are automatically integrated in order to protect the investors. So for example, just how many of you guys know what insider trading is? Okay, great, actually lots of people. So, I mean, one of the most famous insider trading situations was with someone by the name of Martha Stewart in the US. And everybody knows about it, so it's just an example. But unfortunately, the investors, normal people who were invested in that stock, find out about the insider trading months later, okay? Which I think that is not fair to the investors. And so what we can do with the blockchain is we can actually tag the addresses of the insiders. So when they move their assets to go trade on the market, and they didn't give the adequate disclosure that they're supposed to when they're doing this kind of transaction, the stock exchange can see this, the FSC can see this, you know, and also you guys can see it on the blockchain, because again, this is a tagged address. Everybody's supposed to have, you know, the transparency as to what the insiders are doing. And so as a result, you guys can do what's necessary to mitigate the risk, as well as the JSE could halt the market until a further investigation to make sure that everything is clean. So there's a number of things that go into it to make sure that we have a fair, efficient market with integrity and efficiency.
All right, great. And in terms of international regulatory developments in cryptocurrency, would like to welcome Justine A. Collins from Heart Merd Head Fata to give us the input about international regulation.
Thank you, Marco.
Round of applause, please.
Thank you very much. My name is Justine Collins, and I'm an associate at Hart Muirhead Fatal, attorneys at law. Thank you very much for that great introduction into blockchain technology. And I just wanted to carry you through some of the international regulatory developments in terms of the cryptocurrency world and the digital asset world. Because in Jamaica, we are one of the first regulated stock exchanges, but there are other jurisdictions that are doing some pioneering things. In the US, what they have is a state-by-state approach to regulation. Cryptocurrency participants need to be registered with for example, in New York, they need to be registered with the New York State Department of Financial Services and obtain a BIT license. They've tended to over-regulate in this area in terms of initial coin offerings, which we'll hear about later on. The SEC has kind of clamped down on it because of the definition of securities within the securities legislation in the United States. So recently, in April 2019, the SEC issued some guidelines with regards to, are these tokens, are these digital assets securities? And they've given a lot of clarity using the Howey decision in terms of investment contracts as to how they're categorized. If it is that